Hello, welcome to theCUBE. We are here at the New York Stock Exchange in our East Coast studio. Of course, we've got Palo Alto connecting SiliconANGLE, Silicon Valley, and Wall Street. I'm John Furrier, Dave Vellante. It's like a special CUBE pod edition. IPO on the New York Stock Exchange. Bullish just rang the opening bell. Dave, we've been covering crypto since 2011. I did a little chat GPT that said, hey, how long have I been covering crypto? I couldn't remember those first stories, the whole claims, Craig Wright, Satoshi, to all the dark web, early
last
days,
decade, right?
underbelly of Bitcoin.
Of course.
Certainly the unpacking the bullish IPO on the NYSE is worthy because we've been covering crypto, and more recently just the rise of the mainstreaming of crypto. We're seeing a lot more legitimate blockchain, layer one, layer two businesses on top of this. You see the financial markets and the institutions picking it up. ETFs are out there. You're starting to see Ethereum skyrocketing in price. We had Tom Lee on. We've talked to the founder of Ethereum over the years. It is a rise of the crypto ecosystem. Looks a lot like cloud computing. It's got a lot of scale involved, a lot of money's involved.
A lot of innovation, tech.
Just so much going on. So let's kick it off. We just saw the opening bell. I got a nice 1 minute clip of the opening bell. Certainly, we're seeing a lot of activity. Packed balcony, of course, we're overlooking the show floor here. And of course, the NYSE Wired Crypto Trailblazers series going on this week that we're hosting, highlighting a lot of the leaders of future IPOs and people making it happen. It's money-making day, meets technology. It's really amazing to see the IPO market open up, and NYSE is becoming the place for crypto companies. It's iconic, it's globally recognized. People have an affinity to ringing the opening bell and being at the NYSE, and of course, the media coverage coming out of here is phenomenal, and of course, we're here in the Buttonwood Podium Room. NYSE Wired community is growing. You're starting to see, the appetite with the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, we covered that in our last podcast. The market is opening up big time.
Well, I don't think these guys are going to get quite the reaction that Circle got or Figma, but but it's legit. I mean, it's about a $5 billion plus valuation for this company. The background is they were founded in 2021. They were trying to do a SPAC, and then when at the height of the sort of crypto boom, and then in 2022, they said, no, that's not going to work. So they merged with Tom Farley's company. He was the former president of the NYSE, so he's got the institutional chops. And that's what these guys are all about. They've got this hybrid business model that combines centralized finance with decentralized finance, so that bring the best of both worlds. Centralized brings control and regulatory compliance. The decentralized allows you to participate in the DeFi economy, bringing in apps and all the innovation that's there. So it's kind of an interesting model. Looking at the revenue numbers, John, it's quite amazing. I mean, in 2022 they did 73 million, and then 2023 they boomed to 300 million, and then last year did 153 million. So, and that was due to market volatility when crypto tanked, right? So their trading volumes dropped, and then their net income went from 29 million to 150 million, down to 10 million for the year, and then Q2 2025 was like over, is projected to be in the 100 million range. So you see quite a lot of volatility in this company.
And they're raising over $1 billion, 30 million shares offered. I love the name Bullish. It totally is a bull market. They got a bull in the lobby from the Circle IPO here. Obviously the bull in Manhattan, Wall Street represents, bull market. Clearly bullish on crypto. And I think what's interesting about the centralized, decentralized aspect, it's also a data play. We've had many people on theCUBE just yesterday in our series and other crypto trailblazers where, getting data, you have a lot of these finance guys and who have institutional background and chops, as you say, they get the data game. So centralized meets decentralized, certainly data is going to be big. Have an exchange. Of course, Bullish also acquired CoinDesk, which is a media company, so they have their own media arm. So very interesting company. Again, with Circle, it's a huge tailwind for cryptos. I think it's a good call to go out. They came out on the high end, the range. They were originally expected to be between 32 and 33. They're opening up at 37. We'll wait to see what happens with the pop or not. We'll see. I mean, it's going to be very interesting.
So, to your point about CoinDesk, so they now got a media arm. The premise there, and I think they bought them for 70 million or so it was relatively short money, but the premise there is they will pull in audience that will want to trade. So we'll see if that happens. But they've got some big, Peter Thiel's backing them, a couple of hedge fund managers as well. The names included in the raise: J.P. Morgan, Jefferies, Citi, BlackRock, and ARK. So that's showing quite a bit of interest. But like I said, probably going to be somewhat more subdued than the Circle and Figma IPOs, I would think.
Yeah, and we saw CNBC has a story up already talking about BitGo, and then crypto exchange Gemini also filed confidentially to go public. And again, so the IPO window, not just for crypto, we had the former Binance Labs folks called A-Labs in here yesterday talking to us about how Gen AI and crypto coming together is enabling a lot more on-chain assets on-chain, whether it's bio or finance. This data game is real. I mean, I like this market because it feels a lot like the cloud computing market in the early 2013 timeframe when Amazon really started to get the momentum going. You saw the basic building blocks exist. You start to see abstraction, you start to see software innovations, obviously the SaaS wave hit, and then large scale ramp happened. So you're starting to see the formation of these crypto companies, Dave. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this because the unit economics still, in my opinion, have yet to be realized. Yeah, there's some money making going on and they're big numbers, but the headroom, if the digital asset market crosses over, you will see massive innovation in terms of new use cases. And I think that's what gets my attention, especially with the institutional pickup. You're starting to see real money systems, the plumbing, really adopt what's going on here. So I am very bullish, in this case, bullish going public, just on crypto, because it is inevitable that digital assets, the digital currency has to be, and of course stable coins grounds everything with that. So again, part of the coverage is there with us, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out.
Well, no, you're bullish, no pun intended, but pun intended, I guess. But so, and I think to your point, there's a lot of competition in this space, which actually is an indicator of the market potential. I mean, Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, Uniswap are all pretty well-established competitors that Bullish is going to face. Their differentiation is going to be going after institutional investors or institutions and building that world-class infrastructure. That's going to be their differentiator. They're not necessarily trying to go after sort of the broader consumer market. It's really those institutions that they're trying to target. And so it's going to be interesting to see when this thing actually goes. We should explain how IPOs work here versus the NASDAQ. In the New York Stock Exchange, or the NASDAQ rather, they go out at a certain time. And that whatever time that is, whether the demand and supply are out of balance, doesn't matter. They go out 11:30, 12, 1 o'clock, whatever they've decided. Here it's different. They actually have sort of a market maker who says, let's test it, let's game it, let's do what ifs. What if the price is 37? What if the price is 38? What if the price is 40? What's the demand? And they do the supply and demand and they talk to the bankers. And then at some point, the bankers say, okay, the supply and demand looks good. Maybe it'll get the pop that we want, but not too much pop, whatever, let's go. And that's how they pick the time. You've seen it in action. You go down to the kiosk.
Yeah, and they bring that other bell and they make that first trade.
Right. It's a very exciting moment. And so it's sort of an homage to the throwback days of when they actually had, real trading, humans trading on the floor. So we're going to see, I guess the point there is that it's going to be interesting to see how Bullish in their valuation, their multiples compare to some of this other more established competition. They're in a very, very competitive market, but they've got some significant differentiators. It just, I think, takes more time for them to bake into the institutional market.
Yeah, I think what David Sachs has done with the Genius Act, I posted on LinkedIn yesterday. The Genius Act is a gift to the market. I think it's opened up a lot of opportunities, and I think there's, with the previous regime under the Biden administration and the SEC specifically, everyone had to flee the jurisdiction, if you will, the U.S., to go international. And I think you're going to see companies that have been bunkering in outside the United States come back in and go public because there's real numbers behind some of these crypto companies. It's not like, pump and dump schemes that you've seen with the coins. You're seeing real businesses, real crypto retail, real institutional. You're starting to see a lot more business models kicking in. So there's real mechanics in these businesses that are driving revenue. And certainly the staking of the coins between Bitcoin and Ethereum is really huge. So I think that's going to be a big deal. So I think we'll see more IPOs come. I think the window's open right now, and I think It probably will be for some time unless someone takes a dip, lays an egg on an IPO, then that might scare people. But for right now, I think you're going to see people come out of the gate that have been doing business. Now the question is, do they have the IPO readiness? We've heard, a lot of hallway conversations, certainly that not all IPOs have that corporate, let's go public. So we'll see. I mean, I'm very psyched for this market. And again, we're yet to going to see the innovation.
Well, it's interesting. We were talking yesterday with a number of people about Databricks. Do they go, or do they stay, or do they go? Markets open, another super strong opening today. So we're seeing that. But given that this is crypto Trailblazers, Ethereum finally broke through its previous high of roughly 4,600. It hit 4,700 earlier today. It's interesting, John, because what the historical pattern, as you know, has always been when Bitcoin hits new highs, Ethereum hits new highs, and that didn't happen this time around. Bitcoin went up north of 120,000. And Ethereum kind of was stuck, below its previous high of 4,600, and now it's broken through that. So that could be a sign. Anybody who listened to your interview with Tom Lee a couple of weeks ago saw that coming. I know a lot of people who said, I saw that interview and I bought more ETH. I'm like, yeah, well, that's probably a good move. To your point about the Genius Act and eventually the Clarity Act, the rails don't have a lot of friction right now.
Well, I was talking with the Easy Lab folks, that's formerly Binance Labs, I mentioned that earlier. They have a huge fund, 12 people doing all kinds of incubation, and one of the things that came up was obviously the convergence of Gen AI and blockchain, but we were commenting, and I'd love to get your reaction on this, because remember back in 2015, between 2015 and 2018, I'd say 2018 is when the market started to go sideways on blockchain, we saw that. There was a thirst for alpha entrepreneurs. When I say alpha entrepreneurs, I mean like hardcore nerds were all over it. If you look at the AI market, most of the top players in Gen AI are basically former Bitcoin miners, right? So you saw the Bitcoin mining business buying all the GPUs, getting all the energy, and they were mining Bitcoin and doing crypto. But then during that phase where there was a lot of blockchain development, you had real engineering going on. Okay, fast forward to today, 2018 to say 2023, 24, that market, NFTs and all that stuff happened, then now we're starting to see a surge of that kind of engineering. I was in Palo Alto for the last crypto Trailblazers. The Stanford crypto group came in. There's some real freaking great projects going on, like really financeable VC ventures on L1 chains, L2 chains, and the thought that everyone will have a chain is interesting. So you start to see more, and even it's rumored, and it's kind of a public secret, that both Circle and Stripe are building L1 blockchains. And so there could be a scenario where there's millions of blockchains out there. So, what if, and there's a botched upgrade in Ethereum? I mean, that price could crater. Remember, the Ethereum was doing great and then had like performance problems. Now they've fixed it. But what happens next?
That led to the ascendancy of Solana, as an example.
Yeah, and so you're going to start to see this kind of IT dynamic where upgrading the network, upgrading the capabilities, introduces risk. I think that's going to be an opportunity for companies building stable networks. We had a company in yesterday they're all nerds, they're all techies. They're like, we're all engineers. We're building the best infrastructure as a one-stop shop. And so you're starting to see that alpha entrepreneurial engineering mindset come into these blockchain deals. And I think that's one sign. And the second sign is the money's coming in. So you got money and engineering coming together.
And we heard yesterday from Sergey from Chainlink Labs. He, I thought, did a really good job of laying out sort of the premise for Ethereum and the utility of that blockchain. I mean, he kind of really depositioned Bitcoin. He said, Bitcoin, you're competing for the TAM of gold. I don't agree with that. I think there is incremental TAM there. But maybe eventually it's the same TAM.
Antoine Katz from Talos, I interviewed him. They built a platform for institutional trading and digital management of assets. It's basically a tech platform with observability and data and all that stuff.
Making the point that I wanted to share is that Bitcoin, as we know, is not programmable, but Solidity is the programming language for Ethereum, and that spawned all this innovation. We know it goes back to 2017, and we sort of had an Ethereum winter, if you will, after the big spike in 2021. But the point is, all that that innovation is now hitting the market, combined with the new administration's new posture on crypto, and that's like a perfect storm and the pent-up demand for IPOs. It's like a perfect storm for growth.
And again, that's why I like it to the cloud wave, not that it's a direct metaphor or comparable, but the same trajectory of economics are there in terms of money making, but the tech trajectory, simple building blocks, AWS turns into higher level abstractions, that's cloud. Go to crypto, you got L1, L2, and now you're starting to see that become the core, and then I think there's going to be tons of building around it, on top of it, and obviously it's decentralized, so it's a whole nother ballgame. So, and the money's there, right?
The finer point here is this: essentially, we're talking about building a new internet, and it's going to start with financial infrastructure, which is the most important infrastructure on the planet, and then that'll span out to other capabilities. Certainly, when things get tokenized, but the original premise again behind this whole area, beyond Satoshi and the whole crash in 2007, 2008, the other piece of that is, if you think about the internet, you know this, John, you were there during the building of the internet, HTTP, SMTP, all the internet protocols, basically, they were created by either academia or the government. They've been co-opted by the big internet giants. And so they kind of own the internet. And so this whole band of nerds, like you call it, but serious tech alphas, said, hey, we want to basically take back the internet. And at the same time, we want to make some money.
The early internet community, prior to the web, even the web, DNS, all done very community oriented. And the similarity between the internet and blockchain is similar. Again, community and consensus drives this ecosystem. So I think it's going to be similar, and I think that has to maintain. If it loses the purity of that community and the consensus decision making, and it nails the performance, I think it'll scale like the internet did.
The difference is you couldn't invest in the LAMP stack, which essentially built the internet, right? If you wanted to invest in Linux, you had to wait until Red Hat did an IPO. But with ICOs and crypto, anybody can get in and get a piece of the action. Yeah. And that's why it was always, I thought, very alluring for the mainstream retail investor, even though we know there's been some scams, a lot of people lost some money on Sam Bankman-Fried and some other scams, but hey, a lot of scams in hard dollars.
In 5 years, we could be talking about observability, containers. The global footprint's key too. I think you look at Solana, that's outside the United States. This is a global phenomenon. The US sovereignty is going to come into it. AI and crypto markets are converging. Similar cultures from an innovation standpoint, different cultures from a quote, community standpoint. Obviously, Gen AI is fast moving, a lot of land grabbing going on, but I think blockchain and crypto specifically, it's going to be a build out, because without the plumbing on the financial side, it doesn't really, I don't think will hit as hard. And if you look at all the successful IPOs, they all have a financial bent to it, in the sense of they're serving product market fit for managing things that the Genius Act enables, Clarity Act enables. How do you get the policies? How do you regulate this stuff? Checking those boxes, absolutely critical. So we'll see what happens.
Well, and I was in a Reddit thread recently, and they were talking about, they're basically laying down the premise for tokenizing and the whole crypto premise of being able to make instantaneous money movement globally. And people were saying, well, wait a minute, what about Zelle? Okay, so, and these other examples. Okay, that may be true, but they're confined to smaller networks. Certainly international networks are sort of within that international realm. But the other point is, as you tokenize other assets, whether it's art or stocks or vehicles or real estate or whatever it is, you'll be able to trade those in a facile manner,
I think the Dell
without all that overhead.
The Zelle example is a good one, because that's what makes the banks have an appetite for crypto, because unlike traditional centralized banking where databases are involved, you got tokenization of assets, you got assets on chain, you got immutability, you have decentralization.
But with Zelle, you don't have smart contracts, you don't have transparency and visibility on the blockchain.
Yeah,
it's just it's a whole different thing. So it's not decentralized, right? And it's not really as fast. Yes, you can make a quick trade.
All right. So bottom line, what's your summary of unpacking the bullish IPO here today as they rang the bell here at the NYSE?
Well, I'm really interested to see what the action does here and how it compares to some of the other offerings that we've seen, and how it compares to some of the valuations of the competitors. But I think, John, it's like, as the saying goes, the trend is your friend. And right now, the trend is a tailwind for IPOs generally and crypto specifically. So I'm bullish. I do think they've got to prove out the hybrid business model, and I think they have to demonstrate that they can differentiate and get those institutions to be sticky. And that remains to be seen.
Well, I'm psyched to see the IPO window open. We're sitting on top of the trading floor here on the options behind us. We're seeing the calls and the puts. AMD's at the top. You're starting to see CoreWeave. They had a little bit of a bump this morning. Tesla's always there, NVIDIA. But active market here today, very, very volatile on the option side, looking good on the main market.
A lot of energy in there.
A lot of energy here. At the New York Stock Exchange, it's theCUBE. Inside theCUBE, NYSE, and the NYSE Wired Crypto Trailblazers program. 2 days of wall-to-wall coverage featuring the leaders in crypto, and what a better way to celebrate that series than have an actual crypto IPO happen here at the NYSE. I'm John Furrier with Dave Vellante. Thanks for watching.